Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Discriminating Gamer. Say, who did King Arthur leave in charge of security? Surveillance. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to go ahead and take a look at my top 10 Grail games of all time. We'll get back to the review in just a moment. I want to take a minute to ask you to check out my other channel, that is Cody Carlson, PhD, where we talk about history, books on history, military history. I even post some of my lectures for my classes on there. Please check that out. Please subscribe to that channel. And now, back to the review. Okay, so top 10 Grail games. Let me be very clear what I'm doing here. I'm not talking about the Grail games I want. I'm talking about Grail games I have in my collection, based again on how much fun they are. Now, what do I mean by a Grail game? With a Grail game, I mean this. I mean games that are either, oftentimes, I think all of these are either out of print or currently out of print, or they're very, very hard to find, either because they're foreign publishers or something like that. Each one of these games is not an easy game to get a hold of. But I think they're great games. They're a lot of fun, and so I'm going to talk about them here. First of all, I do have some honorable mentions. Ticket to Ride, the 10th Anniversary Edition. I've got the Ticket to Ride 10th Anniversary Edition. It's got, of course, the really cool tins. It's got the little trains that are plastic. They're like enhanced trains, or better-looking trains. It's a beautiful map. It's a bigger map. It's a bigger board. It's Ticket to Ride, but it's bigger. It's more beautiful. Like I said, better components. I really like that. I do have the anniversary one for Europe too. I think that one too is also out of print though, but I'm not sure. Conquest of Empire, which was a great game of the Roman Empire. Kind of, I think it was one of the Milton Bradley Game Master series originally, and then I think it was Eagle-Gryphon did it again. Conquest of Empire, though, I say Glenn Drover design. Fun game. I've got the Conan game, which was from was it Monolith, which has the river, and of course you're going around, you're battling. You got different scenarios, and you're battling bad guys, but the bad guy kind of controls. Essentially, it's an all-on-one. The bad guy controls all of these different figures on the board through the river system. Great fun. And then also to Batman Gotham City Chronicles, which is also that kind of same system of the villain has the river there. So, okay, those are just some of my honorable mentions. So now let's go ahead and take a look at my top 10 Grail games in my collection. Again, this is based on the ones I find to be the most fun. So you can probably guess some of the games that are going to be on this list if you watch the show. Number 10, XCOM, the board game from Fantasy Flight Games. Now, XCOM, the board game, I remember when this came out in 2016, I think. This was an Eric Lang design, and it's cool. I'd never really had played the XCOM video game, but I was really looking forward to this because it kind of had a real-time aspect to it, but it's not all real-time. But essentially, there's like 4 mini games, and each player takes on a role. One of you is a scientist, one of you is the commander, one of you is kind of the tactical specialist, and one of you is the communications guy. It's got an app, so the communications guy is kind of dealing with the app, and you've got to get stuff done. You got to roll die and get stuff done. And then after that part of the game is concluded, then you've got a thing where you got to go back and see all the decisions you made during the time phase, if they worked out, if everything you did makes sense, and if not, you are punished in certain ways. But you're trying to stop an alien invasion. It's great. I love the mini games. I love the intensity of this game, and it's a game that I think for a while there was kind of popular, but it didn't stick around. There was an expansion. I think I picked up the expansion, but I never played with it. But it's a good, solid game. That is XCOM, the board game. That is my number 10, and that is from Fantasy Flight Games. My number 9 is a game that originally was part of the Milton Bradley Game Master series in the 1980s, and then about 2012, Fantasy Flight Games republished it. I picked it up at that time. This is Fortress America. Fortress America is a great game where one of you plays essentially the United States of America, and then the 3 other players take on the roles of kind of Asian, South American, and European powers invading the different areas of the United States. And really, it's a game of, can the United States hold out long enough, prevent the invaders from taking a number of American cities long enough in order to hold out and win the game. It's great fun. Now, I will say, it's pretty much, with a few exceptions, a direct port of a direct reskin, rather, of the original game. Not even a reskin, but a new edition. Not a lot changed. I think there are a few little changes. I really feel like they should have made some more substantive changes. They didn't. Having said that, it's still a lot of fun. I played this game a few times and I've really enjoyed it. Um, it's kind of this fun, goofy. I remember playing the original game, the original Milton Bradley game when I was a kid, and it was very much kind of based on Red Dawn, right, and Rah Rah America at that time, and it was really a lot of fun, and it's kind of fun going back and replaying it. It's not a game I like to play constantly and frequently replay, but it is a game once in a while I like to revisit and have fun with because it's just such a daring struggle there that I really enjoy. So that is Fortress America. That is number 9, and that is from Fantasy Flight Games. My number 8 was a game that was originally published by Fantasy Flight Games, but then Fantasy Flight kind of gave the license up to another company, and then it was published by 1A Games. And this is Tide of Iron. Tide of Iron is a great World War II kind of tactical game. The original game, the base game, is Normandy, the American army versus the German army in France. There are several scenarios. They came out with several expansions. There was the Normandy expansion where you actually do the storming the beaches. There was the D-Day expansion. There was the Desert Fox. So now it's the British versus the versus Rommel. And then there was the Awakening the Bear, Fighting the Bear, which was the Germans invading the Soviet Union, which was pretty cool. And then they came out with the next wave, which was 1A, which was the kind of the core box over again. And then I think they did one or two of the expansions again. And then there was also Fantasy Flight also published like a scenario booklet, and a lot of different designers contributed to these scenarios. And I've got it all. I've got everything they published for this game, and I haven't played it in years. In fact, I don't have the original boxes. I've got them all in a crate. But it's a super fun game. I kind of feel like it's been sidelined by some other games for me, most notably A Company of Heroes, which I kind of get that same kind of feel. But I really do like Tide of Iron. I don't see myself giving this one up anytime soon because it is out of print, but I do enjoy it. Just talking about it, I want to get to the table right now again. So that is number 8, Tide of Iron. That was from Fantasy Flight Games and 1A Games. My number 7, another Fantasy Flight title. This is one that is an IP game. It's been very popular. A lot of people over the years have lamented the fact that there were no expansions were made for this, and that Fantasy Flight didn't do more with the IP while they had it. But this is Forbidden Stars. Forbidden Stars is, of course, a Warhammer 40K game. It's kind of a grand strategic game. I really liked it because you got the different tiles, and you've got these storms that are shifting constantly, so you never know from one turn to the next if you can, where you can move your units. But what you're doing is in each space you're putting down kind of these counters in the center of the board, in the center of the tile, and then you are revealing them from top to bottom of the different players' things that say exactly what they can do in that space at that time. So it's an interesting kind of pre-programming strategic game. It's a really fun game. The card combat system is good. It can be kind of long, and if you're not in that card combat system, you're kind of looking at your watch. If it's a 4-player game, so if 2 people are going at it and you're not with them, it can take a while. But having said that, it's a fun game. It's a dark game with a theme, but it's beautiful to look at. Great minis, great artwork on the cards. Really liked it, and again, I feel terrible they never made any expansions for it. So that is number 7. That is Forbidden Stars, and that is from, once again, Fantasy Flight Games. My number 6 is a game that, again, I probably played this for the first time around 2013. Played it a lot in the subsequent years. I haven't played it in a few years, but it's still on my shelf. This is Shadows over Camelot from Days of Wonder. This is another one that's kind of hard to find. You can find it, but it's where I've been looking for it. It's like a little higher priced. I've got the expansion. I never played the expansion, but this is a great game of. It could have been the first Hidden Trader game. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like it is. Where you're playing cooperatively, but then one player potentially could be, out to sabotage everybody. But what's cool in the game is, and not necessarily too, you deal out the cards, there's a possibility you may play the game and no one's the traitor. But I still love that because you're wondering, is somebody trying to screw us? And you're still accusing people of being the traitor. On your turn, you can take a positive action. You can do one good thing, but then you have to do one negative thing. You have to take an evil card. You have to either take a hit on your health points, or you have to put a siege engine in front of Camelot, right? and there's a number of factors that can screw you over, that can make you lose the game, but it is just fantastic. I absolutely love Shadows over Camelot. That is my number 6, and that is from Days of Wonder. My number five is a game, and boy, I debated this. I thought this one would be higher, but there's a lot of great games here. Number 5 is a game that, again, I first played probably 10, 11 years ago. Absolutely fell in love with. Played it several times. Haven't played it in a little while. I need to get this one back to the table. This is essentially a fantasy version of Axis and Allies. This is Conquest of Narra, D&D, Conquest of Narra from Avalon Hill, Wizards of the Coast, etc., etc. This was a game that, like I say, it's fantasy, Axis, and Allies. You've got 4 different factions on 4 different sides of the board. There's a big ocean in the middle of the board, and then one kind of island with some spaces. Instead of bombers, you've got dragons, right? But you're moving your units around, attacking each other. This is a game that does not pay to turtle. If you turtle, you won't do well. You have to move, you have to attack. And then you also have these like heroes that can go into these dungeons, and they can go into dungeons and find treasure and more weapons that will help them during the course of the game. It's just fantastic. And this is one I can't understand why it didn't get more traction, why it didn't really take off, because it is great. The best way to play it is with teams. Instead of a free-for-all, you play teams. Like the people in the corners join up with each other. And it's phenomenal. I've had so much fun with this game. So this is this is Conquest of Narra. That is my number 5. That's from Avalon Hill, Wizards of the Coast. My number 4 is a game that, again, a great IP game. It's probably my favorite game based on this IP. This is Star Trek Fleet Captains from WizKids. Star Trek Fleet Captains, again, it's hard to find, but it is a game where you essentially take on the roles of either the Federation or the Klingons, and in some of the expansions, you'll be Romulans or Dominion. But it's Star Trek in a box. You're moving your starships. They've got the hero click system, and the hero clicks determines its phasers, its shields, its engines, etc. And you're moving these ships around the board. And you've got tiles, and you flip over the tile, and you can see kind of how far you have to go through it. Or there may be things you can do sensor readings on, or there may be planets. And you go down to the planets, or you encounter something, and you draw from the encounter deck. And the encounter deck, it's like a Star Trek episode of the original series, or even Next Gen. It tells you something like some challenge you've got to do like from that, and so you look at like your phasers and your configuration there, you roll die, you try to figure that out. You also do battle, like I say, with the Federation, the Klingons. They can fight each other, the other factions can fight each other. Again, you're testing your weapons against their shields. It's tremendous fun. Klingons can cloak their ships. It's great. I freaking love Star Trek Fleet Captains. Really, again, it feels like Star Trek in the box. So that is Star Trek Fleet Captains, my number 4. That is from WizKids. My number 3 is another game that I love tremendously, and it was great. I had the second edition of it, and it was great, and then it went out of print. I had the third edition of it, and it was great, and then it went out of print. And then I got the fourth edition, and it's out of print again. This is Fury of Dracula, most recently from WizKids. It was from Fantasy Flight Games earlier. Originally, it was a Games Workshop, I think, with the first edition. But Fury of Dracula is amazing. 1 player plays Dracula. 4 players play the hunters, the vampire hunters. So you've got Mina Harker, Jonathan Harker, Lord Godalming. You've got Van Helsing, Dr. Seward. You've got the different characters that are hunting Dracula. They're trying to find Dracula. And it's actually Jonathan Harker's not in the game. He's not one of the people in the game. But it's just great fun. It's great fun. You're trying to find Dracula. You're chasing Dracula around Europe. But Dracula is also laying these traps and is laying down these other vampires that will, if they slide off the board, they will mature, and they will give Dracula victory points, but then they will also give their own nasty surprises to these to the hunters there. It's fantastic. I love Fury of Dracula. I love it because it is so thematic. One of my favorite genres generally is horror. I love horror movies, I love horror books, and I love horror board games. And this is my favorite horror board game. I love Fury of Dracula so much. It's so immersive, it's so thematic. I love playing Dracula, hiding, trying to decide when you're going to pop out and take someone out. But I also love playing the hunters and trying to use deduction to figure out exactly where Dracula is. I remember one time I was playing the game,
And a lot of the guys, it was the first time I was a hunter. It was a lot of their first time playing the game. I think the guy played Dracula, played it once or twice before. And I'm telling everybody, we had a choice where we could decide where he potentially could be. And I said, he's right here. And they're like, well, we don't know that. And I went through step by step. I showed them exactly how he could have moved, how he couldn't have moved. And I said, this is exactly where he is. And they're like, oh, I don't know. And I had the choice. I said, screw it, he's there. Of course, he was there. And I felt so vindicated. But I freaking love this game. It's so much fun. It's a hunt. It's a great game of the hunt and tracking down Dracula. So if you can find it, check it out. That's number 3, Fury of Dracula from WizKids. My number 2, again, you probably saw this one coming. One of the greatest board games of all time, probably my 3rd favorite game of all time. It is fantastic. This is Battlestar Galactica, the board game. This, again, is another great IP game that just, it absolutely captures the IP. But you are the crew of the Battlestar Galactica, and you're all working together to save the ship because Cylons are attacking it from without. You've got all sorts of crises from within. But critically, one or more of the crew members secretly is a Cylon, contributing to these cards to these checks that are working against the crew. So it's chilling. It's so much fun. Every time I play this game, I've got a big old grin on my face, even when I'm losing. Now, Fantasy Flight Games, of course, lost the IP to this game, and they initially tried to make New Angeles kind of the answer to it going forward. New Angeles is a great game. It's got a hidden trader mechanic, but it's not as good. It's not nearly as good. I like New Angeles, but it's not nearly as good as Battlestar Galactica. And then just a couple years ago, they made Unfathomable. And Unfathomable is essentially the exact same game as Battlestar Galactica, reskinned in kind of a Cthulhu setting. So it's like 1912 or something, or 1920 or something, and you're taking a cruise ship from like London to Boston, and all these sea monsters are attacking you. And that is really a lot of fun too. In fact, they just have announced an expansion for that. I'm super excited to see how that works out. In fact, in a lot of ways, I think Unfathomable streamlines the system and is a superior game mechanically. But I just love the theme of Battlestar Galactica because I love the TV show, and this does it so, so well. So that is why Battlestar Galactica is my number 2 Holy Grail game in my collection. That is from Fantasy Flight Games. My number 1 Grail game in my collection. This is a game that also has the distinction of being my favorite game of all time, and this is War Room from Nightingale Games. Now, Nightingale Games is a smaller publisher. This game only came out in 2019, but occasionally they'll do, I think, Kickstarters and whatnot, and you can purchase them. But it's always kind of, you're never quite sure when copies will be available. If you see a copy available at a reasonable price, get it, because I'll tell you right now, this is, first of all, it's designed by Larry Harris, who designed Axis and Allies, and this is the game, to me, this is the game Axis and Allies you always wanted it to be, because instead of resources just being generic resources, you've got specific. You've got oil, you've got metals, you've got what they call other resources, which is like food and stuff like that, and you have to spend them on your weapons in various ways. You have to spend them on your weapons, but also too your oil, which is probably your most important resource. You don't just spend it on weapons. You also have to bid for turn order. Now, everybody's orders are revealed simultaneously, but going first means you can like escape an enemy coming into your location. But you go ahead, you read all your orders, and then you see where their battles are, and you figure out all the battles. You roll off all the battles. It is phenomenal. I love, 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 love this game, and it's probably been nearly 2 years since I played it. I got to organize another game. Probably head down to Salt Lake and play with some friends of mine down there, because it is phenomenal. I love War Room. Great World War II game, and again, probably my favorite game of all time. It's not probably about it. It is my favorite game of all time. Kind of a bear to get together. It's an all-day game. Plan on 6 to 8 hours at a minimum, but man, it's worth it if you like those long games. So that is War Room. That is my number 1 Grail game, and that is from Nightingale Games. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let me know. What do you think? Do these qualify as Grail games to you? What are some of the Grail games in your collection? I'm very interested to know. Please leave a comment here on YouTube, Board Game Geek, Facebook. Let us know what you're thinking. Humbly, like us on Facebook. Give a like to this video. Subscribe to us on YouTube. We really appreciate that. Also, follow us on Twitter, etc., etc. We really like the engagement on social media. I try to answer most of the posts I get everywhere as much as I can. Also, too, I would humbly ask you to check out my other channel, Cody Carlson, PhD. We talk about military history, books on history, and I post my lectures for my classes on there. Please, please, please check that out and subscribe. That would mean a lot to me. I'll probably post this on Board Game Geek. Give a thumb to it there. And if you really like the kind of stuff we give to you on this channel, the content, I would humbly ask you to click on the Super Thanks button and leave a tip. You know, King Arthur wasn't too happy with the quality of his new table. The carpenter cut corners.
Please somebody help me on my feet again. And I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know where I've been. Please somebody help me on the solid ground. It's a long time, and I've been dying. Once a year I wind up in the band. God knows that I love to fight, but I don't ever win. It's a fine line to damnation, but God let me in.
Happens, you can play this card and add +2 to the roll. Like that.
Damn it.